Hi. So Steven Gerrard has ended his time at LA Galaxy on a bit of a low note after crashing out of the Western Conference semi-finals on penalties. He did score his penalty and that's something he should be proud of, but the rest of his team, yeah, not so much. Don't care about LA Galaxy. What I care about and who I care about is Steven Gerrard, and I think it's time to bring him home, to bring him back to Liverpool Football Club. He's going to be 37 at the end of this season. I asked people on a poll on my Twitter account what people felt his role should be if he came back to the club. There was 46% for coach, there was 27% sorry, for a squad member, 21% as an ambassador, and then the rest of the pissing percent said nah, he should be a pundit, and they're basically the people who are minge bags. Why should he come back? Look at those roles. As far as I'm concerned, pundit, no, not for Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard's got bags of personality. He has. We don't see it very often. I don't think he's particularly comfortable in camera, whereas Jamie Carragher is gobby, and I think he's managed to grow into that role. That is a potential for Gerrard. Maybe he could. But for me, even more so than Jamie Carragher, Steven Gerrard is Mr. Liverpool. Yes, to those pictures of him in an Everton kit. Fuck that. We don't care about that. That was clearly a poor decision on either his part or more likely his parents' part. He got to touch a league trophy, that's the thing. Steven Gerrard belongs at Liverpool Football Club, and there's a lot of people who are saying, oh look, he could be a disruptive influence. I'm sorry, but that's complete and utter bullshit. I think it's a narrative that was spun by the club at the time to kind of justify why they weren't keeping him around. How much of that comes off the back of the manager at the time, Brendan Rodgers, and did he feel that Steven Gerrard had too much control at the football club? And let's be honest, he probably did. He was behind, appointments like Roy Hodgson. I think he backed Roy Hodgson at the time, as did Jamie Carragher. But that's by the by. Steven Gerrard is an experienced, in a football sense, in a world football sense, professional. He's got 710 appearances for Liverpool, 186 goals. And on top of that, again, even though we don't care about England, 114 international caps as well. That's the kind of experience that a limited number of footballers have, because in order to have that level of experience, you need to have been absolutely world class at footy, and that's something that Steven Gerrard was. Was is an important word. Is he still world class? No, of course he's not. But having that around the squad can only be a positive thing. Now, I'm not saying you bring Steven Gerrard back as a player. He's not going into the first 11, though I will make a case for him to be involved in the squad. I think he's got a role to play within there. But what I'd say is, look, he's not going to come in and play 15, 20, 30 games a season for Liverpool. That's never going to happen. His legs aren't there. I wouldn't expect them to be. But would I have him registered as a member of Liverpool's squad? 100%. Of course I would. Pick his registration up. Why wouldn't you? You can have him as a coach, look, yeah. And I've heard people say, well, where's his coaching experience? Well, where is your coaching experience until you start coaching? Or you will go and work through the leagues. Nah, fuck that. I don't want to see Steven Gerrard coaching Torquay United. I don't want to see him at Leyton Orient. I want to see Steven Gerrard at Liverpool. He doesn't need to be heir apparent to Jurgen Klopp's throne or some bollocks like that. No, I just want him in and around the football club, because all of that experience, that aforementioned experience, the guy, yes, he's not won a Premier League title, but he's won European Cups, he's been to European Cup finals, played at World Cups, played at European Championships, won domestic cup trophies, won the UEFA Cup. The guy's won everything bar a Premier League trophy. How many people in world football can actually say that? And relatively speaking, it's a very small sample pool. Take into account the fact that the guy absolutely adores Liverpool Football Club, would do anything for this club. And I am baffled by the response of people who don't want him anywhere near Liverpool. Maybe he brings too much attention. I don't think that's the case. I think you'd get an initial burst of that. But who is the real star at Liverpool Football Club right now? It's Jurgen Klopp. Is Steven Gerrard bigger than Jurgen Klopp? No, physically, no, because he's only 6 foot. But in terms of personality, he's definitely not a bigger personality than Klopp. If Jurgen Klopp would be happy to have him around, then that should be it. As far as I'm concerned, there should be no more question marks over whether Steven Gerrard should come back. If he wants to be a coach and he wants to do his coaching badges, let him do it. Let him work with the kids. You're a Trent Alexander-Arnold or a Ben Woodburn or any number of incredibly talented footballers coming through this club that Jurgen Klopp is very keen to develop as well. Well, look, there's not just he's not a picture on a wall, DVD, video on YouTube. He's a living, breathing guy that you can cut him and go, excuse me, Stevie, how would you handle this situation? Can you give me a bit of advice here? How do you handle the pressure in certain circumstances? That is 100% invaluable. When you think of the players that Liverpool have used in the past, Robbie Fowler goes in and does academy stuff. Rob Jones. Look, I love Robbie Fowler and I love Rob Jones, but they're not Steven Gerrard. There are very few clubs that have access to talent of that level. And unfortunately, the days have gone where we had 11 world-class players at any given time in the team. The 80s are gone, you know, the old guard, your Ian Rushes, your Jan Mulbys, your John Barneses. Their playing days are over, and yes, they can still offer the experience, but they can't be on the training ground still. Maybe Gerrard hasn't got the legs to play 90 minutes of Premier League football, maybe not even 90 minutes at all, but he's still fit enough to train. Look what Zidane did at Real Madrid. He was an ambassador, but he was also on the training pitch, because who wouldn't be a better footballer for playing with a footballer of that calibre? It's impossible not to get better at football, rubbing shoulders with other great footballers and talented people. It's true in life, and it's doubly true in football. Ambassadorial role, let's talk about that as well. Look at Liverpool's ambassadors. Ian Rush, spot on. Robbie Fowler, spot on. Michael Owen, what the fuck? Comes from the original Judas, and look, you can make a case for that whichever way you want to do. I've heard this side of the story. It's very well accounted for in Cy Hughes' latest book. But should he be the forefront of Liverpool's ambassadorial work? Absolutely not. Steven Gerrard, send him out places, send him to meet other players. Dele Alli would have signed for Liverpool if we'd sent Steven Gerrard, if we'd give him a call, because he loved Steven Gerrard. There's a generation of young footballers who absolutely idolise him. I think there's a role for him there within the club, 100%. I mentioned there might be a role for him in a playing sense. Personally, for me, you know, have him as part of the squad. We've got a 25-man squad. We've only registered 22. He's a homegrown player, so it would be fine anyway. Bring him in. You don't need to play him. Have him around the club again. Train. There's loads of players we've got in that squad who don't really get near the first team. If he wants to just play football, if he doesn't want to hang out with people, he wants to have a kickabout, put him with the under-23s. People might say that's a bit of an embarrassment, but no, if you're saying he's a player coach, there's no embarrassment to that. Get Steven Gerrard on the pitch. Kenny Dalglish did it toward the tail end of his career. I know he was still playing at the top level for us, but again, having that guy to call upon. And who knows, a situation might arise at the end of the season when you have a mad injury crisis and you say he doesn't have the legs for the pressing game. Lucas Leiva's playing as an auxiliary centre-half for Liverpool. Could you see a world where Gerrard plays the left-sided of the centre-back pair? I'm not saying it's an ideal solution, but I'm saying you don't need to bomb around the pitch very much, having a little bit of culture, having a good touch, being of a decent size, being a combative kind of player. I wouldn't be against the idea of seeing Gerrard come off the bench a couple of times towards the end of the season and have a run out, but you know, that's just my opinion on that one. There's stuff that he might retire altogether, and if that's the case, fine. If he wants to do that, still, again, ambassadorial role. Get him into Liverpool Football Club, embrace him, embrace that experience. There's talk that he actually might go to Celtic. Guaranteed league title trophy if you go to Celtic. People thought he might have guaranteed trophies in MLS. That's not been the case, because I think that's a tougher league than people give it credit for. If he went to Celtic, he would definitely win the league title there. But no, end this debacle, end this nonsense. Steven Gerrard, if you've got anything left in the tank, I hope he's got the head and the humility to be able to go, well, look, I could probably go and play 15, 20 games for Celtic, but you know what? I might get a few odd little appearances for Liverpool, and you know, I might, and I think we should all buy into this dream, because what's the point of not dreaming in football? Could end up with a league title at Liverpool, one last hurrah. You know what? It's far-fetched. Yeah, it's far-fetched, but I say buy into the dream, because why not buy into the dream? The dream of Steven Gerrard, the dream of a man who basically single-handedly dragged us to a Champions League, the guy who dragged us through countless finals, FA Cup finals, the guy who's pulled us out of the shit more times than necessary. I say let's pull him out the shit. Let's not let him fade into the background and into the night and go and be some shit pundit on ITV. Get him involved with Liverpool Football Club, bring him back into the fold, channel his brilliance towards making Liverpool a bigger and better football club moving forward. Anyway, that's just my opinion anyway, for what it's worth.